bridge of his nose as he studied the enormous, curved blade that was covered in decorative engravings. "Faraday seems just as intrigued by him as you are," Vivi said with a grin, looking down at the shaggy dog who was sat on the floor beside Jack, staring up at the Viking mannequin with a slightly puzzled expression. Faraday watched the strange man with the axe carefully. He smelt funny and could stand unnaturally still. He was therefore not to be trusted. "Excuse me," a harassed-looking security guard said as he hurried towards them. "Dogs are not allowed in here, I'm afraid. I'm going to have to ask you to take that animal outside." "It's okay," Harry said, stepping forward and intercepting the advancing guard, while reaching into his pocket. He whipped out an official-looking laminate card and quickly waved it around in front of the slightly confused man's face. "He's our emotional support dog. He's allowed to come anywhere with us." "Yeah," Vivi said quickly, following Harry's lead. "We all get very anxious in large crowds, so he has to come with us whenever we visit somewhere like this." "Really?" the guard asked, looking down at Faraday, who was now staring back at him and drooling happily. "He doesn't look all that supportive to me." "Oh yes, it's all very official," Harry said, waving his school library card around in front of the guard's face before quickly popping it back into his pocket before the man had an opportunity to study it too closely. Harry couldn't tell the man the real reason they were reluctant to let Faraday out of their sight. While he may have looked like an ordinary dog, the truth was altogether weirder. Harry had found him wandering in the woods a couple of weeks earlier, with no sign of his owner. That may have seemed rather strange, but it was nothing compared to what happened once the gang took Faraday back to their private clubhouse. There, he helped himself to an unguarded snack, which triggered a bizarre energy field centered on Faraday that had transported him and his bewildered new friends back in time to ancient Egypt. The gang had survived their hair-raising adventures there and somehow managed to find a way back to their own time, but they were still no closer to understanding what had given their newfound canine friend those amazing special abilities. The only clue they had to where he might have come from was the name tag on the collar around his neck, but everything else about him was still a mystery. They had all decided that the best thing to do for now was to keep him secret and safe, until they had a better idea of where he might have come from and what the limits to his abilities might be. "Right. Well, just make sure that you keep him under control," the guard said with a slight frown. "He mustn't disturb the other guests." "Oh, he won't. He's very well trained," Vivi fibbed, patting Faraday on the head. "Come on," Alex said, as they watched the guard wander away. "I came to see the star of the show." He gestured towards an archway that led into an adjoining part of the museum with the words "Sail into History" printed on it. They headed inside and found themselves in a long hall with a high ceiling that was dominated by the single giant exhibit that filled the space: a beautifully preserved Viking longboat. The boat was 20 meters long, her ancient hull covered in intricately carved runes, and at her prow was a magnificent figurehead depicting a roaring dragon. "Whoa," Alex said, staring up at the ship, with his mouth wide open. "It's far bigger than I was expecting." "It says here that the boat was especially well preserved because it was buried with a Viking queen, who was the last ruler of her clan before they were wiped out in a vicious war," Vivi said, reading the plaque next to the display. "Female rulers were unusual back then," Sofia said. "She must have been quite a woman." While they all stood admiring the longship, Faraday's nose twitched. While the humans were obviously very impressed by the big wooden object, he was much more interested in the smell that was coming from just around the corner. He quietly padded across to the open door in an adjoining corridor and followed his nose towards the box that was sitting on the table inside. He wasn't quite sure what was in the box, but his tummy was telling him that finding out might be rewarding. "Where's Faraday?" Vivi asked suddenly, realizing that he was nowhere to be seen in the main hall. "Oh, he was here a second ago," Alex said, as they all began to search for the missing dog. There was a sudden, slightly startled bark from an adjoining corridor that was marked as staff only, and the gang saw a strange blue glow start to light up the walls. "Oh no," Harry said with a low groan. "Not again." "Come on, quick," Vivi said, hurrying towards the glow. The others quickly followed her, trying to move fast without drawing too much attention to themselves as they dashed towards the door marked Restoration Department.